took that, I was gonna say a third. And our early voting starts September. And that means, let's say, this week. Of course, yeah, sure.
The August 21st meeting of the Eden Prairie City Council will now come to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Prior to the start of each council meeting, we have an opportunity for residents to address the council on items of city business. Our meetings are generally the first and third Tuesdays of the month, and the period of time for open podium is from approximately 6:30 to 6:55 here in the council chambers. If you wish to speak at open podium, you can contact the city manager's office at 949-8412 by noon of the meeting date with your name, your phone number, and the subject matter you wish to discuss. If time permits, after scheduled speakers are finished, then I will open the floor to unscheduled speakers. This portion of the meeting is not recorded, nor is it televised. Again, if you have any questions, please contact the city manager's office. We have a number of proclamations and presentations, donations tonight, and we'll start with the first one, which is a donation from the Sampson family. Mr. Lothammer?
Yes, Your Honor, council members. This is actually the 10th year of a donation from the Sampson family, in addition to when they donated the entire building for the Arts Center. So this goes towards some more equipment that we need to purchase there, and we really appreciate them supporting us throughout the years as well as initially.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so a donation of $9,980.04 from the Sampson family. Is there a motion?
Move to adopt the resolution accepting the donation in the amount of $9,980.04 from the Sampson family to go towards the Art Center equipment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So thank you very much to the Sampson family. Incidentally, the Sampson family do not even live in Eden Prairie. I think they're in Edina. But they are very dedicated to the arts and made this great donation of the Arts Center to our community and continue to support it. The next item is from the Pickleball Association. Mr.
Yes,
Lothammer.
the Starring Lake Court project is completed and is opened. And as you recall, the Southwest Metro Pickleball Association agreed to fund a portion towards the pickleball courts. The total that they agreed to was $47,150. This is their first installment. They expect the other half to come in the near future. But tonight, $23,575 from them. And just to make you and the public aware, Your Honor, Wednesday the 29th at 5:30, Southwest Metro will have some cake and some punch, and they will be at the site doing a grand opening, and they would like the mayor and any council members who would like to attend or members of the public to come and recognize the opening of the courts.
Are they going to be providing demonstrations too?
Yes, both demonstrations, and also there'll be quite a bit of play after the ceremony.
Okay, great. Thank
Nice.
That was Wednesday, the 29th at 5:30?
Correct.
you. Yes. At Starring Lake, yeah.
I would move to adopt the resolution accepting the donation of $23,575 from Southwest Metro Pickleball Club to go towards Starring Lake Park Pickleball Courts.
Second.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
The motion passes. Thank you to the Southwest Metro Pickleball Club. A great new asset for our community. And then a donation for the hometown celebration.
Yes, July 3rd and 4th, what we call our hometown celebration. We had previously recognized the Eden Prairie Smiles and Lions Tap, but we have three others that contributed. $500 from Elam Shores, $1,000 from J.A. Price, and $200 from Wall Trends. So that's the resolution tonight accepting those contributions.
I would move to adopt the resolution accepting the donation of $1,700 from various donors to go towards the hometown celebration.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you to those three new donors. And then safety camp.
Yeah, so we are receiving this through the crime fund, but the dollars are coming from Comcast. And at Safety Camp graduation, Chief Esbenson and also Deputy Chief Weber and I were able to accept the money from the Comcast representative, and he was able to speak to the Safety Camp graduates, and we let him know our appreciation there. But we really appreciate having this contribution back, and we will look for it into the future. They did indicate that they want to continue to be a part of helping things in our community, so I think this is a very good start and a needy project at Safety Camp.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Motion to adopt the resolution accepting the donation of $5,000 from the Eden Prairie Crime Fund that was donated to them from Comcast to go to the safety camp.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you for the $5,000 to Comcast.
The next one we've received from the American Legion Post 580 before, and usually towards senior center or senior programs in our community, and they are contributing again, $2,500. We'll be using that for safety training to engage more people in the wood shop, and also some senior needs for assistance to programs. And just to mention, although the wood shop is at the senior center, we're really trying to promote it and market it as the community's wood shop. It's not just for seniors. We do want to encourage anybody in our community to be a part of it. We provide a really good training for safety purposes, and a lot of the people that work in the wood shop that are very skilled are always willing to help people that are in need of help.
Nice.
Now that you bring that up, is there information on our website when that wood shop is open to the public?
Yeah, if you go in and look under the senior center, and then when we mail out the both our brochure and then also the senior newsletter, we promote the times and hours there.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion?
Move to adopt the resolution accepting the donation of $2,500 from the American Legion Post 580 to go towards veterans and senior programs and woodshop safety and equipment needs at the senior center.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much to American Legion Post 580, and that looks like pretty close to or around about $50,000 of donations to your programs, Mr. Lighthammer. Thank you. Is there a motion for approval of the agenda and other items of business?
So moved.
Second.
Any items to eliminate or add?
Just 3 quick items
Okay.
under council member reports.
Okay. All right, all in favor as amended?
Aye.
Minutes. Is there a motion for approval of the minutes from the council workshop held on Tuesday, July 17th?
So moved.
Second.
Any corrections? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Is there a motion for approval of the minutes from the council meeting held that same date?
Move approval.
Second.
Any corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Consent calendar. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Any items to question or pull for discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes. Our public hearing tonight is Abra Auto Body and Glass. Mr. Getchell.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members. Our public hearing is for construction of a new proposed 18,000 square foot Abra Auto Body building located at on 2.98 acres called Old Pioneer Trail. The proposal includes the removing of existing structures, and they're redeveloping the site for this new proposed use. The site plan for this project complies with all code requirements related to building materials, architecture, parking lot design, parking stall count, so there are no waivers being requested. The applicant's requesting that the property be re-guided to industrial. Now, prior to 2004, the property was guided and zoned for industrial, but since 2004, there have been two projects that came forward that had commercial uses, so the property was re-guided, rezoned for commercial, but those projects were never constructed. So the application's requesting for a reverting back to that industrial zoning, which the staff and the Planning Commission support for this location. The project proponent is here to provide a presentation. I believe they have a PowerPoint, and we have a public hearing, and then the staff and the project proponent can answer any questions that the council may have.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jim Horniker. I'm with Oppidan Investment Company. We're the developers of this project. So the PowerPoint, there we go. Thank you. So this is the prototypical elevation for an Abra auto body. It's a relatively new concept or new prototype design. Working with staff, though, we've made several significant enhancements to the elevations to make it look more like this. Although the images are smaller, it gives you all four sides there. But roughly speaking, it gives both a lot of visual interest as it both articulates the building horizontally and vertically. It provides a mix of materials and colors that, again, to create some more visual interest. It exceeds the Class 1 and Class 2 requirements for building materials set for the code. So it's roughly about 40% brick and about 51% rock-faced block with integral color. This is the site plan that was just referenced there. The primary access point is the southwestern one. It's a wider throat. The customer entrance into the and it's primarily the customer entrance and as well as service entrance. The customer parking is over on the west side of the property towards the front door there, which is at the southwest corner of the building. There is a fence that wraps around the primary parking field. The fence provides security as well as visual screening for the cars that are awaiting repair and the cars that have received repairs and are waiting pickup. There is a second access point on the north side that is largely going to be used for fire safety reasons.
What kind of fence is that going to be then?
It's going to be a 7-foot-high vinyl, low-maintenance privacy fence.
Okay.
So there is a current Abra today in town that lacks fencing around the parking area. It's something that is valuable to our customers as well as to the operations of the building. Okay. I should also point out that over 47% of the 3-acre parcel will be pervious or open green space. And along those lines, here's the landscape plan as well. We're making some minor tweaks to make sure that we comply with FAA regulations, given its proximity to Flying Cloud Airport. I'm sorry, there's one thing I forgot to mention on the site plan that shows up here. If you look at the southwest access point, we are showing a future opening over there just off the south side of the driveway to provide access for any future development that takes place on the property to the south of us. This is simply a reference to the floor plan. Most of the customer serving or facing area, again, is in the very front part of the building over on the left. And then there's some office space back there, but primarily the building is for auto repair operations. And most of that is not going to be customer accessible for safety reasons and other reasons. We have a couple of material board slides. This helps illustrate something that is only a little bit visible on the elevation slide itself, but we're using a mix of materials and colors to help create that visual interest. And again, to the question Councilmember Aho asked earlier, on the side there is part of that black security or vinyl fence. So typically when we develop on 2 acres of land, this is a little bit larger. It's a 3-acre land, which provides us with a little more landscaping here than what we typically would do. We have limited parking for customers in the front, but most of the parking, as we mentioned, was for vehicles that are in process. We will have that 7-foot-high fence for screening. A great deal of green space here as well, meeting or exceeding municipal requirements. And then again, we've got a lot of the visual interest in the building with the different combinations of materials. Just two highlights here at the very bottom here. The use intensity is far less than what you typically find for retail. You're not finding the convenience store traffic that is going to an auto body repair shop. Most of the drop in traffic we get is for dent repairs or paintless dent repairs or windshield repairs as well. But of course, there are some cars that have to be towed in. Construction typically lasts about 6 months, weather permitting. Sustainability, I'm not going to go through each one of these points, but suffice to say there are things being done to help make the project more sustainable, from LED lights to utilizing native plant species to reduce irrigation requirements. Plus, we'll have rain sensors on the irrigation as well. We have some oversized ceiling fans to help make the space more efficiently conditioned, because we do tend to condition the shop space as well. And then, of course, we've got some high efficiency exterior glazing that helps reduce some of the requirements on the inside too, primarily the office customer area. Facility operations, typically our hours range from 7 to 7. Almost all of the work, the body repair work, is done on the inside of the building, which limits some of the noise considerations. There is sometimes work that has to be done in the cars in the parking lot in order to help make them transferable into the building itself, but that's generally limited. Again, most of the cars that are serviced here are driven to the site because people just have smaller fender benders as opposed to total wrecks. And we typically serve about 100 to 120 cars a month. That may be more after a hailstorm or after a series of blizzards, but that's roughly what is typical. And then there are a number of things for spill kits, either for paint spills or if there's a car that's brought to the property that has some kind of leak, to address that. And then all disposal of materials is done according to regulations and legal requirements. A couple of things. Our typical employment is about 12 to 20 employees, providing a number of different positions. There's hourly and some salary positions as well. Hourly ranges from $15 to $20 per hour, so these are decent jobs, decent hourly jobs. There are benefits provided as well as IRAs as well. And then finally, there's the range of new store volumes, typically in the $4 million range. And this does help clean up our operations as we go about replacing stores as well. And when there's a taxable question, in terms of what the municipality may be able to derive out of sales tax, some volume is taxable, but a lot of it is service-based, so it's usually not taxable as well. So to my knowledge, there's been no determination about closing the existing Abra facility in conjunction with this. There may be a period of time where both stores are in operation. I'm available for any questions you may have.
Any questions? Councilmember Nelson.
Yes, two questions. The first is, why do you want it to change from industrial or commercial to industrial?
The zoning classification of industrial helps allow this use. So it's more of a use question.
Okay. And are you going to keep your other Abra facility here in town, or will you move all your business to this new one?
I think eventually we'll move all the business over to the new location, but there may be a period of time where both are at operation.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Case.
I'm trying to visualize what it will look like from the streetscape on various sides, and I know you've talked about the black vinyl fence, which I appreciate the idea that we'd be blocking off some of the things that we might not want to see, but I also envision we're just driving by and it's this wall of black vinyl fences. Do you have any pictures of that, or can you point out?
Can we bring up the PowerPoint again? I'm a little bit limited in what I can show here.
I understand.
But there is a screen. The fence is actually shown on the elevations here. So if you look, particularly at the east and the south elevations, and to a degree to the north, there's some shading, some dark gray shading that is provided that helps give you a sense for where that fence is located in relation, in proportion to the building.
Okay.
So most of the visual interest is still going to be visible.
But the garages, like I'm trying to picture the
fence will be
directions.
opaque, so you will not be able to see, for example, the garage doors on the south elevation that's there.
Okay. And on the north elevation, that faces the neighborhood.
Correct.
So they won't see garages, and plus that fence will be
Correct,
there.
and that's not the traffic side of the building. So
Correct.
we don't have any doors that service vehicles through it. We have emergency exits on that side of the building, but
Okay.
those are not going to be visible because of the fence.
Then my second question had to do with the rainwater gardens, which I believe that's what they're intended. You've got all the plant growth in them, so I'm
Right,
assuming
we got a couple
they're
of infiltration gardens
formal-
plus a storm retention pond.
what we would think of as rainwater gardens. I've been noticing them more and more, and I like them a lot when I've seen them. What I worry about is the plant growth in them during the month of August. If we continue on our cycle of a dry August, that things in there don't live, and I just wonder in terms of ongoing upkeep, I'm assuming anyone, ABRA or anybody that builds one, realizes it's a long-term commitment, I would think. Is there an awareness of that?
Yeah, that can certainly be underlined in this. ABRA is going to be under a lease here at this location, and stipulations are in there that they have to maintain the
Okay.
property and so forth. So, and I think storm ponds are called out in that language as well. So,
Okay.
and I think that it's also worth pointing out. I think if you look at the staff report, it does reference how the stormwater from the right-of-way actually will be draining into this infiltration and rainwater gardens as well.
Is there any is the capacity in these 3 ponds only for this property? Is there any capacity to take the land to the south of it? Because that's a small lot. I don't know if there's enough room there to handle their own water. There's not? Okay.
No, I think there's a grade change issue that would make
okay.
it prohibitive as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councilmember Aho.
Yeah, so I think you had on one slide, you had some notice about this, but I didn't really get a chance to read through that. In terms of the paint spray booths and
Yes.
things, so when you're spraying in there, how do you treat that air when you do air exchange in there? Is that just vented outside, or is that treated before it's vented outside, or how does that work?
That's a great question. I'm afraid I don't know the technical specifications of that. It is an enclosed booth inside the building, and there is space in between the roof and the top of that paint booth. I do know that there is some air connections there. There is some filters that prevent the air from just mixing, going straight up out there. But I don't know all the ins and outs and technical specifications of that.
But it is treated to some extent
it's
before
filtered.
it's,
Yes.
yeah, okay, it is. Excellent. Well, I like the design, it looks beautiful, and I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
I do actually.
Okay, go
One
ahead.
for staff. If this goes back to industrial, I assume it must be light industrial rather than full. If they leave someday, will that open the site to be, it won't go full industrial or anything like that? I assume it would have to be a clean use industrial site?
Your Honor and Councilmember Nelson, with our comprehensive plan update, excuse me, thank you. With our comprehensive plan update, we're actually looking at guiding this site flex service, which is the same as the Martin Drive area that we're looking
Okay.
at. So we anticipate that we'll actually be developing a new ordinance to go with that. But one of the things that we looked at when we looked at these area studies was that we need a place for these auto-oriented types of uses. And we do see the flex service as being the type of area where we would allow these auto-oriented types of uses, as well as other things that look for this kind of flex area, like dance studios and different. That's why it's going to kind of accommodate a little bit unique mix, and we decided to create a new comp plan designation over. So there'll be more specifics with regard to that, but we did see this as a fit under both the current lighter industrial, your correct district, as well as the future flex service, but we don't expect that industrial zoning, quite frankly, to stay for very long.
Okay, so this is intended to go to flex service,
Correct.
and I assume the ABRA has no problems with that, where they're not going to come in and complain, or?
I don't know, we actually suggested that they look at this area because of our future plans and the fact that the Aztec Drive area has the adjacent residential to the east. There's some wetland between there, but they were looking at potentially expanding in that area, and we said that's really more of a sensitive area and actually directed them here. So we've kind of worked through that. You know, obviously we didn't have all the details with regard to what the building standards and everything would be, but we think that they did a really nice job with the building, so we're very comfortable with it.
All right, thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the audience that wants to address the council on the Abra Auto Body proposal? Okay, I don't see
Seeing none,
anyone.
I would move that we close the public hearing and adopt the resolution for guide plan change from community commercial to industrial on 2.98 acres, and approve the first reading of the ordinance for zoning district change from CCOM to I2 on 2.98 acres, and adopt the resolution for preliminary plat of 3 lots into 1 lot on 2.98 acres, and direct staff to prepare a development agreement incorporating staff and commission recommendations and council conditions.
Second.
Any other comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The motion passes. Welcome. Thank you. Next item is payment of claims. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Any items to question? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Aho,
Aye.
Councilmember Case,
Aye.
Councilmember Nelson,
Aye.
Mayor Tara Lukens.
Aye. Next, we have, I think it would be reports of council members, isn't it, first?
I think so.
Yes, Mr. Case.
Just real quickly, on some of my wanderings and walks of late around the city, just a couple issues came up that were specific, but I'm not bringing them up because they were necessarily specific to any homeowner, but they raised issues that I think are have larger implications I'd like to just share with the rest of the council and staff. So the first one was that over on Dell Road, the first stop sign north of Highway 5, right at our water tower that's being painted, there's a stop sign that several neighbors at National Night Out, or Night to Unite, shared that you gotta stand out there sometime, Ron. The cars just blow through it constantly. They don't hardly see it. There's some visual impediments, and I know they've called the police. They've had issues. So they just raised the question of, could they have, which I think would be one of the first in our, I think it's the first in our city, one of the blinking lighted stop signs that have the solar, component to them. I don't know. I said, I don't know. And so I took it back to Rick. I know he's connecting with a couple staff. I just wanted to throw that out there, that I think there are only specific places really that they would work. You don't want the blinking thing in people's houses. You want it to be relevant to a stop sign that maybe is problematic. It just seemed like that might be, if you know that intersection, an ideal spot to have a trial. So I just wanted to benchmark that here at a meeting. I've connected with Rick already.
So
but
this is by Hidden Ponds.
Yeah, that's correct.
well, it's south of, yeah, a little, yep. Yeah.
All right.
And the second one is an issue that many of you are familiar with, and I know our staff are, and I'm not raising it for the individual instance. It's the issue of the above-ground pool with the bees in it over by Village Woods Drive. I know that many of you have been connected. I'm raising it with this idea. When we pass an ordinance allowing bees to be raised in our city, there are obviously going to be inadvertent consequences to that, and I think we understood that. But I don't know that we've ever really laid out a, we have some going out to get permission from neighbors around you, but we've never really talked about what if there's such a negative impact of something that we do, chickens or whatever, on a particular neighbor based on health that makes it to the extent that they might even consider not being able to live there. And at that point, I don't think that was our intention, whatever we've passed, ever to have that kind of an impact. And I know that this particular, I will say something about this particular instance. Staff has gone out, they've tried to show they're not sure the bees are coming from the farm site, on and on and on. But it's apparent nonetheless that this particular pool is attracting so many bees that they can't swim in it. And at that point, and the only place within close proximity, even though I understand they fly 5 miles, she's been to the University of Minnesota, I know the background, but nonetheless, the closest bee place where they're raising them is the farm, which is a couple hundred feet away. So I just throw that out, just for food for thought. Do we want to look at what does it mean to write in, and we'd have to nuance it. I realize it's difficult, but when there's such a negative impact from something that we've done to the extent that it makes it difficult for someone to stay living in the city, then I think there has to be something written in there that then, in that instance, if the bees could be proven to have come from the farm, I realize that's problematic, then we would take action. So
what triggers a reassessment of the policy?
Well, exactly, and I don't know. I mean, in this case, there is such an impact on a home that it may trigger us having staff look at, is there a way, have any cities across the United States faced situations where they've permitted chickens, bees, whatever, and they wrote in a clause that if there's a proven negative impact on a neighbor within so many feet, then that permit to have whatever we just approved is null and void. Something, I don't know. I just know that we want to give freedoms to as many residents as we can, and we don't want it to have a negative impact on a neighbor. And that's a different thing than going around and getting approval. And that's not what I'm saying, because that's more of a perceptual subjective. But if there's a proven damage or a detriment to a neighbor, I think that ought to trigger something. And so I'd really rather throw it back to staff and say, what have other communities across the nation faced? Go to the League of Minnesota Cities and see if there have been impacts. Because all of us go out to this above ground pool and we all feel very hurt and very sad. And if the data were rock solid that the bees are coming from that farm and impacting that house, then I think we rule that farm can't have bees. But we don't, that connection's not rock solid, is my understanding. But I still want us to think about what if it was, and what if the science is there. Then I think when we pass something, that was not our intention to have it be negative on such. And again, that's different than somebody being allergic to a bee that lives a mile away, because bees are everywhere. That's not what we're saying here. This is thousands of bees landing in a pool day after day after day, making it virtually unswimmable. Okay, I just file that away. Third one.
I agree with you, though, that I think there should be some recourse. And this woman's been having this problem for several years.
Yeah.
And
I know you've been out there. I know maybe Brad. I know Nancy hasn't. Thank you. The third one is just a real quick. I know that the city went out to the infamous, I think that's an appropriate word, their outlet over by Village Woods Drive, where I had argued a month or two ago about opening up a trail that the city owns. I know you and I have pledged to walk that, and we just haven't had a chance, Mayor. But I know since the city was out there cleaning up, I kind of felt like it would have been a great opportunity just to, and again, we're not talking about building a trail, we're just talking about cutting some branches off to open up the path that we own. And I wondered why that could not be done in this instance, so I just raised it again, that we were there and we were doing, I think, some work on that outlet. I would love to see us open that path up, but I know that you had said, let's walk it, and we'll bring that idea back. That's it.
All right, thank you. The next item is a report from our Park and Rec Director.
Your Honor, council members, this item tonight is the Minnesota River Vista, and it does culminate with asking you to approve the contract to move forward with it. And so walk you through a little bit of history, and there's actually quite a lot of history that goes with and around this particular project. It's been something that a lot of our commissions and even council members have been discussing and aware of for quite some time. So just wanted to orient you where this is, because we talk about it as a couple different things, and it truly is. So you're looking at the left part of the slide as our border with Shakopee. And Flying Cloud, you'll kind of see this red line that goes across, and that is where the road project is currently happening. The reason why it's a dotted red line is because part of the road project is to put in a path and a trail. So that trail will come up to almost exactly where the new Minnesota River Vista is. And we're calling it that because we already have an overlook park. And the other one, the older one we plan to honor as a part of the interpretation. So we've been calling it the Minnesota River Vista. It overlooks the Minnesota River. The red line continues to move on in a solid red line. That is where an additional trail connection would go in the future as part of our bike and pedestrian master plan, and it would connect up to Pioneer Trail. So that is a pretty long and important link, not just to get from Shakopee, but when you think about all the new houses that are just north of Flying Cloud, a lot of people will be able to ride or walk downhill to get to that and take it all the way up to Pioneer Trail and everywhere that you can go to from there. So the orange property, that is the old Wayside Park, and I'll show you a little bit more about that. And then just 1,600 feet to the west of that is where Charleston Road comes out, and that's where the Minnesota River Vista is planned to be located. So just going back in time to the Wayside, Lookout Park Wayside, it was constructed in 1939 by the National Youth Administration workers, overseen by workers of the WPA, and also some of the Minnesota Department of Transportation engineers were on site to help with that. It's currently owned by the Metropolitan Airports Commission, and at least for the last 10 years, I've been asked by people, why can't you just go in there and why can't we rebuild it? We're a volunteer group, we'll help you. We're a scout group, we'll help you. And when you look at it coming off the north-south runway, you can better understand why that isn't something that MAC would approve of. And it won't happen going into the future, I believe, unless the airport would go away. So really, the next best thing is to interpret that. And a really good way to interpret it, in addition to just the sign, is to actually construct, I think, what we've been working on and proposing to do. So off limits, but we're still able to harvest some of the stone and make it a part of the interpretation of what the new location, just 1,600 feet to the west of that, would be. So we do have a lot of history. Some of it would be incorporated through pictures or quotes and statements and some of the interpretive signs that we'll design into the new overlook. And again, like I mentioned, we want to incorporate some of the stone and obviously replicate the amazing views. If you've had a chance to be down there, it's pretty incredible how far and wide you can basically see within the river valley. So we have the ability to go onto that site, remove some of the stone. Some of it's pretty deteriorated, but we'll take a few of the stones that are in good condition and make them part of the pillars that will go into the new one in order to honor it. And we'll call attention to that so people understand what that stone would have looked like at the time. Again, that new location, you're looking at the end of Charleston Road. And to the right side, you're looking at C.H. Robinson, and there's the trail connection that comes down and comes through the box culvert underneath Charleston Road. And that's where you kind of come out of the dark and you burst out with this really spectacular view. So you see the culvert in the upper left. You come out of the culvert. It allows you to rest at benches. It allows you to view. And it also has 3 different panels that we'll be able to use for wayfinding and interpretation. You are seeing those round circles in gray. In a little while, I'll show you the dollar figures that come back, and those are a part of an alternate. In order to be able to have more of a stamped and colored concrete, the other portion that's a part of the alternate is anti-graffiti coating, which we do think is really important. But we wanted to call both of those out in an alternate so that we understood the pricing and the value to that if we wanted it to be part of the actual general contract, or maybe it's something we wanted to do outside of the general contract, so to have that flexibility. So again, the interpretive signs, we really have 3 different themes for them. One is the history, both the history of the other site, but also the history of that location within our community. Obviously, a lot of rich history and settlement and pre-settlement times in that location. Also, environment. When you think of the river valley, some of the hillside is filled with remnant native prairies. The type of birds that have that as a flight pattern and some of the animals that go through there. So we want to help people understand that, and also the river itself, where we sit in the kind of in the spot on the river, on the Minnesota River where we sit, and where does the Minnesota River go. And that leads a little bit into location. When you look across, there's a lot of monuments and significant buildings that you see across. And so if you've seen some of they do it a lot at national parks, where you'll have a picture of almost what you see when you look out, and then it'll have lines or numbers that show you this is Valley Fair, and this is the historic church in Shakopee, and some of the things that you can visually see we'll call attention to. The good news is we butt up to U.S. Fish and Wildlife property, and they are really anxious to help us in partnering. They have some really good interpretive and naturalists that put together their signage, and so they're going to help us as a part of our project too. This is once you kind of, I'm actually taking this picture standing in the culvert looking out, and we were there recently with the Parks Commission. We've been there with the Parks Commission a couple times over the last few years. This, the plan has also been in front of the HPC, the Historic Preservation Commission. Unanimous favorite when we showed some concepts to them. They really, and the Parks Commission really gravitated to the one that I showed you, because it had some of the circular elements and ability in the piers to honor the previous site too. So we really appreciate the involvement that both of those commissions have had on this project. So we went out for bid. We did this as an advertised sealed bid situation. The estimate about a little over $400,000. We were very fortunate, came back at a low bid of a total of $346,000. I think one of the reasons for that, the timing is really, really good for this, because the road is closed down for the road work. If we tried to do this a year ago or a year from now, I believe that those bids would be higher because of staging, shutting down traffic, some of the things that the contractor would have to do in order to get the site work done, or it'd be more difficult for them to stockpile and haul compared to what it is with that lane shut down. So we did get a wide variety of bids. We got 3 that were pretty close to being low together. Blackstone is a contractor that we've worked with before and have good confidence with them. And again, that alternate of $16,000 to really make the concrete look nicer in a stamped and in a colored fashion. And the anti-graffiti piece, I think, is really important for us. So what would it look like if we were to approve this tonight? We would begin construction almost right away. The contractor is pretty anxious to get going. Substantial completion would likely be by mid-November, and then some finishing touches next spring with some of the interpretive panels installed, and then looking towards a grand opening for June of 2019. So
Great.
Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Councilmember Nelson.
Is there parking at this, or you have to come under that culvert, and where do you park then, or?
There's no parking available or even possible in this location. And that really is a major difference when you read some of the history of the previous site. That was almost fully intended for automobiles. People didn't really have a lot of gas stations along the way, and so as they were coming up, sometimes from the south or coming down from the north, more of these roadside rests were in place, and people would stop there along the way and be able to have a picnic or take a rest at those locations. But this does not have any, the closest parking scenario would be along Charleston Road, and then you take the trail down to it.
So this is strictly a bicycle pedestrian pathway into this?
Yes, so and when you think about if you're taking that trail, whether it's on the bike or a walk, it is a great place, almost 3/4 to halfway up the trail from Shakopee or coming down the hill. It'd be a good place to stop and take a rest. Or if you're coming down Charleston Road, same thing, you kind of dead end into that spot.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds great. Councilmember Case.
So you mentioned that you've run this by the HPC. Are you working directly with any historical group that would be advising, besides, I mean, the HPC is also advisory, but and it could be Lori Kramer, but she might need to also employ someone else. But is there some group you're working with in terms of some of the Native American history? I know at the original overlook, there was a sign, and we have pictures of that,
Yeah.
honoring the very last Indian battle between the Ojibwe and the Dakota, May 28th, 1858, which was the last battle between those two great tribes across the United States of America. So I would think that would be one of the kiosks as well, something like that?
Yeah, you know, if you go up into Hennepin Village, there's a small overlook up there, and there's a historical sign there that talks exactly about that. And so taking some of those elements, but then adding in more of the wayside rest piece to it, that would all be encompassed onto more of the historical sign to it. We have worked with SHPO early on to get their feedback. Lori Kramer sees this going back and forth between the commission. She carries it forward to them. But
I mean, I don't know that it's even possible or cost prohibitive, but if that sign could be duplicated, because we have a great picture of it and it's just classic, 1938 look,
yeah,
that would be really wonderful. And then I'm assuming you've done such a great job on the other trails in the Richard T. Anderson, the kiosks in the Richard T. Anderson Park, but looking at the glacier history, that's just a great opportunity to really talk about the Glacier River. Literally was up to the lapping at the edges of where this overlook will be.
Yeah, and that particular sign, in good guidance with the Fish and Wildlife experts too, we'll use them. So really, I think each of those three interpretive signs will involve different expertise and different organizations to help us put those together.
Has SHPO signed off on taking the stone away from the original?
Both SHPO and then also the Airport Commission, because they own the property.
Sure.
Yeah.
Did Sherry Butcher Wickstrom sign off on that? I'm just kidding. All right.
That's great. Okay, is there a motion?
Oh, I'd like to make that. I would move to accept the bids. Well, do we, just for a moment, so if we throw in the alternative into this, that's in the 346.
That is the 346.
So it's all encompassing. There's nothing additional that you're asking for if that's doing what we need to do. Okay.
Yeah.
Move to accept bids and award the contract for the Minnesota River Vista Site Improvements Project to Blackstone Contractors LLC in the amount of $346,112.50.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. It looks
Nice.
like it's going to be beautiful. Any other business to bring before the council? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Meeting adjourned.